Hello, everybody. This is Zach Said It Again. I'm your host, Zach Cooley, and I am honored beyond words to introduce my guest today, the legendary improvisational comic of Whose Line Is It Anyway? Author, comedian, actor, just genius, and all-around great guy. Mr. Colin Mochrie is on the phone with me today. Thank you so much, Colin, for talking to me again. I have had 3 interviews with you over the past 16 years, and they have been the 3 highlights of my career. So thank you so much for doing this with me.
You're welcome. Although now I'm feeling some pressure.
Oh no, not at all. I'm sure you don't remember me, but I remember all of our interviews very vividly. As I said, they were highlights of my career, and you've always been so kind. But this is the first time that you have come within the actual region of Southwest Virginia that I actually cover for the paper, so I could not pass this up. Is this your first time to this corner of Southwest Virginia?
I believe it is, yeah.
And how do you perceive, you haven't been here yet, but how do you perceive this area, Virginia, North Carolina, and the people? Do you get to interact with any of the people at all?
My interactions are usually very short because we get in the day of the show usually, then we have a sound check and things like that, and then we leave the next morning. So we rarely get to actually see the place that we're playing in unless we're booked for a couple of shows or over a week. So I try to get out and see people mostly as I go to restaurants and shove food down my gate, but I'm looking forward to it. I always love going to places I've never been before and just getting a feel for the country.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what is your opinion of the Blue Ridge Mountains and things like that? I know the last time I saw you, you were in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. That's about an hour and 15 minutes from me in the other direction, and I was fortunate enough to meet you there in person and be photographed with you and Brad. One of the great thrills of my life to have that happen. What is your perception of the Appalachian region, I guess I should say?
It's beautiful. I grew up in Vancouver, so I love the mountains. It's one of my favorite geographical things. So, I love any kind of mountains, and if there's an ocean nearby, even better, or just a big lake. The combination of mountains and water, I think it's why there's so many paintings of those things. It's just, I find it breathtaking.
Absolutely. Well, we're certainly honored to have you in a place like Bristol. The Paramount Theater is a beautiful small theater. You're almost sold out, I believe. Last time I checked, maybe 20 seats left in the house, so you're going to have a good crowd. When I saw your show last time, I saw for the first time the Mousetrap Act, which involves you playing the alphabet game that we know from Whose Line Is It Anyway, where you go through the entire alphabet with line by line. You give an A line, Brad gives a B line, you give a C line, back and forth till you complete, and you have to do it in 90 seconds. Only your partner, Brad Sherwood, decided to add, let's blindfold us, and then let's walk across a room with 99 mouse traps. Let's add to that. And you came out of the show bleeding, as is apparently common with this skit. And so I have to ask, on the last show you had many ideas that were physically painful. Are you still willing to be hospitalized for the sake of a laugh? Are we going to see you do things that hurt yourself, or has that kind of tamed off?
No, Zach, I'm a wily veteran now. I can find ways of inflicting pain on Brad without me actually having to go through it myself.
Wonderful.
Yeah, we retired with mousetraps, I guess, shortly before the pandemic, just because it was something we were doing all the time. Also, I'm getting quite old. I'm 66 now, and a toe breaks. It takes a while to heal. So we've come up with different ways of making the show hard on us without it being physically dangerous.
Well, I'm actually glad to hear that, because I was thinking that here's these two brilliant performers. Why do they feel they have to hurt themselves to make us laugh? They really don't. But as you had said before, that was Brad's idea. And
it was Brad's idea, yeah.
So
audiences state that they love to see minor celebrities in pain. So, we try to fulfill people's fantasies.
Well, I'm very glad that you're able to retaliate a little bit and inflict pain on Brad in retaliation, because I think after that he deserves it a little.
Absolutely.
So while we're on the subject of your very talented partner, it was very obvious during the run of Whose Line, and I realize that it's still going on the CW. Is it still going now? It's still.
Yeah, we shot last January, and then I just got an email a couple of days ago saying there's going to be another season, but we don't have to film it because they just had a lot of extra stuff from the last taping. So, yep, there's at least one more season coming out.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Because if everybody had done everything right, it should not have been ever off the air. The 6 years that it was on ABC was the only 6 years that I saw it, because after I was married in 2010, we didn't get cable. So I haven't seen any of the newly incarnated versions, but the ABC version that ran from 98 to 2004 is what I grew up on, and absolutely fell in love with Whose Line Is It Anyway, and became forever a Colin Mochrie fan. Is there a particular incarnation of that show that's a favorite of yours?
I mean, they're all favorites for different reasons. I assume it's the same when you have a lot of kids. Each kid has something that you just love about them. I mean, the first show, the British incarnation, it was great because we got to go to England. We had 6 weeks there, and we just worked on the weekend. So I have a lot of family in Britain also. So it was nice to, get over there on somebody else's dime, and then being able to do the show with some great British improvisers who are, friends to this day, and who we constantly keep in contact, and when we can work together. And then the Drew Carey show was, that was the show that sort of gave us all a career. Mm-hmm. It put us in the spotlight. Drew, again, a dream to work with. The show was incredibly popular, even though we were up against Friends and Survivor for most of our run. And then with Aisha, it was just, it was almost like a high school reunion. Everybody coming back after years of not doing it together and finding we just fell into the rhythm. It was like there was no break whatsoever. And again, Aisha, lovely in every way possible. She's smart, she's funny, she's sharp, she doesn't take anything from anyone. And it kept us all, it keeps us all sharp and keeps us in shape for all the other things we do in the improv world.
And I found during our first interview, one of the things that stuck with me, that was back in December of 2008, by the way, that you talked to me on the phone for the first time, December 11th, 2008. I remember it that well. It was a Thursday. So you can tell I'm a fan. Back at that time, you told me something that astounded me, and because I asked you what's your funniest bit or proudest moment of you, and you said, I really don't remember what I've done when I go and do a show because we have nothing. You do it, and then you forget it. So my question to you is, do you watch the reruns of the show or watch yourself on TV and think, man, that guy is really funny? Or what do you, if you do watch the show, how do you watch it versus how I would watch it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't sit down and watch the show, but there have been times where I'm flipping through channels and I'll see an episode, and so I'll watch it. And part of me is astounded because I am not that person in real life. My wife calls the guy on Newsline the other, because in real life I tend to be quieter and keep to myself. My wife is she's the funny one in the family. She's a storyteller. She's the life of the party. And I in real life I just like listening to people's stories and talking to them. And also when I'm watching, I'll get upset. I'll go, oh, I missed that golden moment that Ryan just offered me something really good and I missed it, or I just thought of something even better than that. So so yeah, I don't watch because it just depresses me.
You're overly critical of yourself.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. That's so you don't. I mean, when you steal the show, obviously, by getting the last line of the Irish drinking song or the ever dreaded hoedown, you don't find yourself as hysterical as the audience is seeming to. And the time you were you may not even remember this, but Wayne was doing the greatest hits, and you stole the show by dancing at every number. The audience was chanting your name, and you were dancing.
I do remember that only because I saw it recently, and I thought, man, I can no longer do that stuff. What my body is doing in this particular clip. There's no way. If I tried that now, I'd break a hip.
Well, and it was very interesting, too, when I asked you this, because I was born with cerebral palsy and have spent my life bound to a wheelchair. So I was asking you about things, and this is not one of my questions, but I was asking you about things. Could you call me up for the audience? Is there something that I could do? You named off all kinds of things. The alphabet game, sound effects, all kinds of things that I could be included in, which made me feel very good that I could have been a part of something like that. So to watch somebody with that physicality and that fearlessness sitting from a wheelchair is particularly awe-inspiring, if I may say so. To be able to do that and to have the audience in the palm of your hand as a result of that is truly amazing. And I think the art that you do is truly, it's unprecedented and it's underappreciated, and nobody does it like you do. You are truly the best at what you do, sir.
Well, in fact, it would be rude for me to disagree with you because you're making some very good points.
Well,
yes,
well,
right.
I just want you to know that from a person who has spent his life immobile, you have added to it exponentially through your comic ability, and I'm being very serious when I say that. And to be able to have a job where I can actually speak to you and tell you what you have added to my life and what it's done for me to have interviewed you 3 times. And I tell people when you're on TV, that's my friend Colin. You have no clue who I am, but I can pull out the picture to prove that we've been photographed together. But that but I do that all the time because I can't tell you what that has added to my life. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you. I mean, thank you for sharing that. I mean, one of the things that I love most about Whose Line, I mean, all my best friends were on that show, and it's a really good group. But it's also been it's been lovely when people come up and say, I grew up with this show. This was a show I would watch with my parents, or my father just before he passed away. We would watch this religiously, and you never think as a performer. Not really. You don't think about how many lives you can touch, especially if you're on a television show that is popular. And people have felt. What I also love about the show is everyone on that show has a rabid fan base. There's people who love Ryan, Wayne, and Greg, and Brad, and Chip, and Jeff. Everybody has a section of the population who just loves them separately and loves us as a group. And so that's nice also. It's nice that, there's sometimes in this world, you just need like a half hour to kind of decompress and laugh. And I think that's what the show did.
It certainly did. You mentioned that you and I saw in an interview with Brad, he said, I get to see a side of Colin that Deb doesn't get to see. Deb is your wife, and you just mentioned that's not who you are at home. He gets to see a side of you that nobody else gets to see. So what can you tell us? What do you get to see about Brad that we don't get to see? What can you tell us about Brad?
Oh, I could tell you things that would curl your hair. Yeah. What is great? I mean, we've been doing this tour for almost 23 years now, which is, it's really unheard of for a group to last that long. Rock bands, except unless you're the Rolling Stones, don't last that long. And part of it is, we have the luxury of our show is different every night. Our show is for that particular audience. No other audience will ever see it. So we're on the road a lot. And the great thing about Brad is he's very detail oriented. He is one of those, he's a little OCD. If he walks past something that has a sign on it that says do not touch, he will look at it for a while and he'll touch it just because that's what he does. But because of that, he makes the tour run without any hiccups. He's there to make sure the hotels are good and everything. And I'm kind of there just to make sure he doesn't have a stroke. Mm-hmm. So we have the perfect kind of relationship. He takes care of all the things I would never think of, but benefit totally from him having taken the time to do that. So he's very, very detail oriented, very verbal. He's always playing word games on his iPad. What else? Totally dotes on his wife, Shauna. I guess they've been together now for almost 20 years. So yeah, he does have a tender side. On stage and on television, he has more of a smart kind of a persona. But he certainly has a vulnerable, I make him cry all the time.
With your ability to go straight to the emotions, or in what ways do you make him cry?
I stab him.
Yeah, I knew there was going to be some physical suffering that caused the tears. Yeah.
Yes, he deserves it. Yeah.
Yeah, for the mousetraps, right? I couldn't agree more. Speaking on Brad, I have also seen an interview because I am sitting here with it open in front of me now, a copy of Not Quite the Classics, written by Mr. Mochrie, which I sat and reread through most of as I was preparing for our interview. Brilliant piece of work by the way.
Thank you.
As someone who dreams of being a truly published author as opposed to a self-published one. It's a brilliant piece of work. I asked you last time if you were going to write any other books. You said you hoped you never had to because it was work and you don't like work, and I totally agree with you. It's way too much work. But you and Brad joked about writing a coffee table book entitled, with the removal of the expletive, "You're Not the Rolling Stones." Was that something you were ever serious about, or are you doing any other books in the future? Is Brad doing any books, or is that something you just totally left behind?
Yeah, I mean, every once in a while we talk about it. We've never actually done it. We just wanted to do all the humbling experiences we've had on the road. You know, sometimes you have these experiences and people say, well, you know, it's to keep you humble. At this point, we can't get any more humble.
Right.
Everywhere something happens, and you know, it ends up being funny. And who knows what we may end up doing a coffee table. I have to maybe when I see Brad next in Bristol, we'll talk about it.
Oh, that would be terrific. You're not seeing him again till the Bristol show?
Nope. I've had some time off. I also do a little another tour with a hypnotist, where he hypnotizes audience members and then I improvise with them.
I have seen that too. That has come to North Carolina, which is in driving distance, but I've not been able to see that. Maybe I can sometime. The press agent used to have, Andy. She was absolutely wonderful to me and was always good about arranging this. And I appreciate Jeff Abram for arranging this today. I would love to have an opportunity to see that as well.
Yes, pretty bizarre. Pretty bizarre.
You mentioned also in our first interview that you grew up with Ryan Stiles in Vancouver. And when I see the two of you having fun on the show, I think about that and think about what would it have been like to grow up with Colin and Ryan together. Did you always have as crazy and fun a relationship as you had growing up? What was that like, growing up with you?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much from the very when I say grow up, when I first met Ryan, I guess we were both in our early 20s.
Okay.
He was a stand-up, and I think you would agree with me, not a great one. His strength was he would kind of improvise with the audience, and that's where he would get most of his laughs, just off the cuff. So when we kind of got together, it was just it was like I almost like love at first sight. We immediately just sort of clicked on the on stage together, and I was just trying to think of stories, but yeah, a lot of stuff happened. Stories I really can't tell without his permission. But,
right.
Yeah, he's definitely the wackier out of the two of us, I would say.
That may be another book in and of itself sometime.
It may be. I have to wait till I have the tell-all book, Everyone on Whose Line.
Right. So it was obvious when you watched the show that although you could see that all of you were good friends and all of you had the bond, like you and Ryan were paired off as kind of your own entity. You know, it was Wayne and Brad, the two singers on the left, and Ryan and Colin, you know, over to the right to be the silly one, to set up the joke. And do you find now that you have an equally close relationship with Brad since you all have been out on the road? Did you say 23 years?
Yeah. 2001 was our first show.
Goes back to even when the show was on. So how did the two of you decide, okay, we're going to pair up and go on the road, the two of us?
It was Brad, actually. It was all his idea. We, at that point, we were doing shows every Super Bowl weekend with Drew. Drew said, hey, I talked to Caesars. Said, we do a version of the show. So every Super Bowl weekend, we would go do a weekend of shows at some casino in Vegas. And, the shows were a lot of fun. And, of course, being in Vegas was fun. But there was like 10 of us. It was like all the regular cast and some friends of ours who were improvisers. So nobody really got a chance to do a lot. There was a lot of sitting around. Mm-hmm. And Brad had been sort of tinkering with an idea of a two-person show. So he said, would you want to try it? So we went on sort of a 2-week tryout period to see how it would go. And that was 23 years ago.
Well, and I've seen the show, and it is absolutely amazing that you can pull somebody out of the audience and they can give you absolutely nothing, but you can still roll with it. And that's the genius of what you and Brad do.